I do not want my children wasting their time watching those soap operas.
Well, neither do I, but they refuse to look at the Gong Show.
And I found the dollar on the stoop.
That must have been the dollar that I lost. Was it green? Calvin, you come in here before I knock you in the middle of next week. Everybody was having a great time. And that's when Everett started this debate about the pros and cons of exact change. Trying to steal my money.
Trying to steal your money?
Yes, trickers, that's what you are. Every one of you. Are you old fool? I love talking to cabbies all over the city. I like to look at it as a career in broadcasting. I'm giving a sit-down dinner, and I have to pick up the hors d'oeuvres and knee-high.
You, Olivia, are now officially a widow.
This woman passed away 25 years ago. 25! And we're still talking about her. That alone should tell you how iconic she was. Helen Martin wasn't just another sweet old lady on screen. She was a scene-stealing, purse-swinging, foul-mouthed firecracker who left her mark in just a few minutes of screen time. If you know, you know. And if you don't, you're about to. When asked what she would have done if she hadn't become an actress, Helen gave the most unexpected answer: a stripper.
I've been a stripper.
And honestly, we're kinda mad she didn't give that a shot too. Born on July 23, 1909 in St. Louis, Missouri, Helen Dorothy Martin was the only child of William Martin, a minister, and Amanda Frankie, née Fox, a musically gifted woman who probably had the house humming 24/7. Not long after her birth, the family packed up and moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where Helen was raised in a deeply religious and creatively charged environment. Now, her parents had one very specific dream for their daughter: concert pianist, like classical music, grand piano, long gowns, the whole thing. And Helen, well, she had other plans. Still, she humored them by enrolling at Fisk University and Tennessee Agricultural and Industrial State College. But while her parents were hoping for Mozart, Helen was secretly falling in love with the stage. College turned out to be more than textbooks and expectations. It introduced her to the magic of live theater. She got involved in campus productions, found her voice, literally, sis had pipes, and even fronted a 12-man band as a singer and conductor. But when the pull of performance became too loud to ignore, she made a move that would change everything. She dropped out and headed north, first to Chicago, then to New York City, ready to chase the spotlight. But this wasn't some smooth, straight-to-Broadway journey. Oh no, the Great Depression was doing its thing, so Helen kept herself afloat working as a domestic worker while hustling for her big break.
I've done all kinds of work: post office, Western Union, box factories, maize, hotel work, all of that.
And in the late 1930s, she finally found her tribe. In 1939, she acted with the Rose McClendon Players in New York City, one of the few spaces at the time creating work for Black performers. But Helen wasn't just about acting in other people's visions, she wanted to build platforms. So in 1940, she helped co-found the American Negro Theater, ANT, in Harlem, alongside powerhouses like Abram Hill and Frederick O'Neill. The ANT was a radical act of creation. It gave Black actors, writers, and creatives a place to actually be seen when mainstream theater was still locking the doors. And then came her big Broadway break. In 1941, Helen made her official Broadway debut in Orson Welles' staging of Native Son, playing Vera Thomas alongside the legendary Canada Lee. That role put her on the map. She toured with the show on the so-called subway circuit and even took her talent across the ocean to London. Sis was international before Instagram existed. And it didn't stop there. Helen became a Broadway regular, gracing the stage in productions like Pearly Victorious, Period of Adjustment, Take a Giant Step, The Long Dream, and The Almond Corner. She even stepped into Jean Genet's The Blacks off-Broadway, proving time and time again that she could handle everything from Harlem soul to French existentialism. The woman had range. It's important to understand how rare that was. Back then, Black actresses were almost always cast as maids, nannies, or background noise. But Helen, she was front and center. She found and sometimes made roles that gave her something real to do, roles with meat, roles with soul. And slowly, as the world started catching up, the roles got richer, deeper, and more meaningful. Now let's get into the part of Helen Martin's story where things really start cooking. Because while Sis had already dominated the theater scene, it was her move to television that made her a full-blown icon, the kind your mama loved, your grandma adored, and you still quote without even realizing it. Helen didn't just hop on screen and become famous overnight. Nah, she worked her way up, playing memorable characters in small doses that slowly turned into major recognition. Her first major on-screen role came in the 1970s with the neo-noir comedy Cotton Comes to Harlem.
Your old Uncle Tom. Ain't no trick, ma'am. I'm just trying to get this bale of cotton onto my cart.
A film that was loud, proud, and unapologetically Black. Helen played a church sister, yes, church hat and all, and she was right alongside legends like Ossie Davis, Raymond St. Jacques, Red Fox, and Calvin Lockhart. It was a small role, but like always, she made it hit. A few years later, she stepped into sitcom territory with That's My Mama.
And put a dent right in the side of my chopped liver taxi.
Playing Laura in a juicy multi-episode arc opposite Clifton Davis and Teresa Merritt. That role cracked a door open, and once Helen Martin got in, she stayed booked and busy. She made guest appearances in everything that mattered in the 70s. Maude, Policewoman, Starsky and Hutch, you name it. And her performances weren't just filler. Audiences loved her. She had that perfect balance of sass and warmth with a side eye sharp enough to cut glass. And then came Good Times. Ugh, Good Times, the show that gifted us Weeping Wanda.
And I was hitchhiking a ride, and you just go right on past me.
Helen first popped up on the classic sitcom as a one-off character, but producers and the viewers saw the magic. So they brought her back. Not once, not twice, but 7 more times.
I only spent 30 beautiful years here.
30 years. I guess it's time to change that baking soda in the refrigerator.
Her character evolved into Weeping Wanda, a neighbor who showed up to every funeral, every tragedy, every sad moment in the building, dramatically crying like she was auditioning for an Oscar, even if the situation didn't really call for it. By the time the 80s rolled around, Helen Martin had become the go-to Black grandma on television, but she wasn't playing tired stereotypes. No, Helen brought flavor, wit, and just the right touch of outrageousness. She was versatile too, bouncing from dramas like Hill Street Blues to comedies like Alice, Benson, and the Jeffersons like it was nothing. One minute she's tugging at your heartstrings, the next she's making you spit out your drink laughing. Then, in 1985, she landed what would become her longest-running and most iconic television role, Pearl Shea in 227.
She's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny, honey.
If you've ever seen this show, you know Miss Pearl. With her binoculars, nosy energy, and sassy one-liners, she was the neighbor who knew everybody's business and wasn't shy about it. Helen Martin played Pearl across more than 115 episodes. Yes, 115, making her a fixture in Black television households all across America.
My second husband was a real salesman. He sold me on my third husband.
Her chemistry with Marla Gibbs and Ja'Kay Harry was top-tier sitcom gold, and her comedic timing, impeccable.
Call somebody your own size, you big brute.
In 227, she wasn't just comic relief, she was the soul of the show. Pearl Shea was elderly, sure, but she had more energy than half the younger cast. She was always on the go, always throwing shade, and always showing up when the tea was hot.
Hi, I'm Calvin Downs.
Yeah, Junior.
What it is ladies first, Junior.
And for viewers, Helen Martin became more than just an actress. She was that cool auntie/grandma figure who reminded you of somebody in your own life. And just when you thought she'd done it all, Helen said, "Hold my purse." In 1996, she absolutely shut it down in Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, the Wayans brothers' iconic parody of Black Hood films. At 87 years old, Helen Martin came in as the gun-toting, weed-smoking grandma who could shoot better than the gangbangers. At 87. She wasn't just funny, she was outrageous in the best way possible. Her role was short, yes, but unforgettable. And let's be real, if you were a kid in the late 90s or early 2000s, that's probably the first place you saw her and thought, wait, who is this hilarious old lady? She also had other memorable film appearances, like Death Wish 1974, Hollywood Shuffle 1987, and Bulworth 1998, continuing to play hilarious and sharp-tongued grandmother roles that by then had become her signature. But make no mistake, Helen Martin's characters weren't just punchlines. She had a way of injecting heart into every role, even the wildest ones. Whether she was playing the grieving neighbor, the nosy friend, the sassy church lady, or the weed-blazing granny in the hood, she brought something real to it. Her work didn't just make people laugh, it paved the way. Helen was one of the few older Black actresses in Hollywood to make it big playing herself, on her own terms, with her own voice. Her comedic portrayals of no-nonsense, take-no-crap elderly women helped create a whole character type that still shows up in sitcoms today. For someone who had the entire country cracking up every time she hit the screen, Helen Martin kept her personal life on stealth mode. She never married, never had children, and wasn't caught up in any celebrity drama or headlines. Sis said, "You can have the gossip, I'll take the gigs." But don't mistake her quiet private life for loneliness. Helen had close-knit bonds in the industry, especially with her 227 co-star and real-life ride-or-die, Marla Gibbs.
I'm sure there's a perfectly rational explanation.
Well, good. You go in, and if you don't come out, I want your partner.
Their chemistry on screen was so natural and seamless because it was rooted in real friendship. When Pearl Shea and Mary Jenkins bickered, shaded, and supported each other, it wasn't just acting, it was two friends doing what they loved together, and you could feel it through the screen.
Pearl, what in the world?
This is my outfit I'm going to wear to the school reunion.
And let's talk about longevity for a second. Helen Martin stayed active in Hollywood for over 60 years. 60! From the Great Depression to the new millennium, she was still delivering lines, stealing laughs, and showing the industry that Black women over 40, hell, over 80, could still slay on screen. It's no small feat. Helen Martin was her. Even in her final days, Helen didn't hit pause. Her last film role was in Something to Sing About, 2000.
Who's gonna look after you way down there?
Which was released posthumously. And of course, she didn't disappoint. The performance was pure Helen, thoughtful, grounded, and effortlessly magnetic. It was the perfect final bow for a woman who'd given so much of herself to the stage and screen. Helen Martin passed away on March 25, 2000, in Monterey, California, at the age of 90. The cause was a heart attack, but the real story is that she left this world the same way she lived in it, with elegance, fire, and a lifetime's worth of laughter trailing behind her. At the time of her passing, her net worth was estimated between $1 million to $5 million, and while the money speaks volumes, it's her legacy that's priceless. Continue to rest in power, Helen Martin, the hood's favorite grandma, Broadway's quiet trailblazer, and one of the funniest, boldest, most unforgettable queens to ever grace a screen.